I'm finally making this video because I've had so many people ask me how they can make money with just using HTML and CSS. And I decided to do some research and look around and come up with a really good video on that topic for anyone who's interested and maybe has not gotten to the point where they've learned JavaScript or any front-end frameworks and they've just been learning HTML and CSS. So you could use this as like a good starting point for maybe some freelance work. Obviously, freelancing is going to play a part here, but there's other ways that you can make money with HTML and CSS, which I'll talk about. And with that said, the first thing is going to be freelancing, obviously, right? There's going to be a lot of freelance web design, web developer jobs that you can find. You're probably going to want to look for like UI developer or UI UX developer. Some of those roles will want some design, but when you're talking about UI development, you're really talking about HTML and CSS when it comes to web development. And while there might be a little bit of JavaScript in UI development, there really shouldn't be. It's really mostly HTML and CSS. And getting those few jobs can be a little tricky, right? It's always hard to get your first freelancing gigs. But with HTML and CSS, you have enough to build static websites. You can build full static websites just using those two things. You'll probably need a little bit more knowledge in how to host a static website and how to actually do that. But you can build static websites with just HTML and CSS. You can also do jobs like Photoshop to HTML and CSS or Figma designs to HTML and CSS. You can find some of your first freelancing gigs on websites like Upwork, freelancer.com, or even Fiverr. You might even be able to find some work locally if you find some local businesses in your area that look like they have crappy websites or don't have any websites. Again, if you learn how to host a static website on like GitHub Pages or Netlify or any of those websites that allow you to host a static HTML website, you can use those services to host them. I remember hosting my portfolio that was just HTML and CSS on GitHub Pages. So you can do that and you can build websites for small companies because a lot of small businesses just need simple websites that can be one page and have some of the basic information that that business needs to display. Most businesses don't need very elaborate websites. They really just need some information, some pictures, and a way to get a hold of them. And you can build something like that with just HTML and CSS. And this is a way that you can make money. You know, I'm going to be as honest as I possibly can here. It's probably not going to be easy to get those first few clients. And it might be hard to actually get anyone to pay you for your services. But if you're learning this stuff anyways, and you want to go and actually build a real website for a local business, you can still put it on your portfolio and give them a free website. If they pay you, great. If they don't, that's fine. Use it on your portfolio to get more work that actually pays and then eventually take it off. The truth is that you got to do what you have to do in order to start getting some paying customers. And as much as I hate telling people that they might have to work for free, that's just the reality of it. You might have to do some free work in order to get some of those first paying gigs. And in freelancing, it can be hard to get those first few clients. So do what you got to do in order to start getting some business. And once you have people that are paying you, then you can get rid of all those freeloaders and go work for the clients that are actually paying you for your services. All right, that's enough about freelancing for now. While there'll probably be a little dabble here and there of different ways that freelancing might play a role into some of these other ways I'm going to talk about, that was the bulk of the freelancing work that you can do with HTML and CSS. The next thing I'm going to mention is creating and selling website templates. People do make money doing this, but I'd be lying if I said that it wasn't a pretty competitive market. Probably going to be difficult to do, but it is a way that people make money with HTML and CSS. And creating and selling website templates is something that people have been doing forever. There's a lot of websites that you can use. The one that I think of the most when it comes to this stuff is like ThemeForce, or I think it's Envanto Market now because they've combined a lot of stuff. But you can do this for a lot of different services and a lot of different platforms. I know that ThemeForce kind of has everything from WordPress websites and all kinds of just static stuff too. You can also look at maybe creating websites for Shopify, and you can look at creating templates for different niche markets that are out there. You might have to do some research on this. You might have to look exactly where the new hot trending stuff is coming up that can use some of your services. Obviously, it's going to be a lot harder to create a successful WordPress theme because WordPress is so widely used and there's already so many themes out there. Keep your ear to the streets and your finger on the pulse. See what new website creation services pop up and see if there's template and theme markets for those services. Believe it or not, there's people that make money creating websites for people who need Wix websites and people who need Shopify websites. And a lot of these drag and drop website creation services, even though they're tailored to the non-technical people and they're like no code, a lot of the times people need customization work. And that might be a way that you can actually get some freelance work as well, which I should have mentioned earlier. But it's something to think about if you're looking around to see what the next newest and latest and greatest thing is that could require some HTML and CSS work. Go check those out because those are good ways for you to make some money doing this. You can also build your own personal website and sell your templates directly through your website. This will be harder if you don't really have like a social media following or if you're kind of a nobody, right? Because unless you're really good at SEO and you have more skills than just HTML and CSS, it might be a little bit harder for you to build a very elaborate like website template e-commerce site of your own. But you could go out and learn some skills like WordPress and learn how to build an e-commerce site where you could sell your own templates, but then it kind of means that you need more than just HTML and CSS skills. But that is something that you can do in order to market your own products and then eliminate the middleman is, host and sell your own templates using HTML and CSS. The truth is that none of this stuff is going to be easy. I'm going to give you all the options and all the ways that you can make money doing this, but I never said that any of this was going to be easy, but it is possible. All right, on to the next thing. All the things I'm mentioning here aren't necessarily targeted to beginners. And if you're someone who has really good HTML and CSS skills, or you've been learning enough to where you feel that your skills are good and you want to maybe start teaching people or coaching people or even creating content or tutorials around your HTML and CSS skills, that is a way that you can make money with HTML and CSS. You can do that by creating a blog. You can do that by creating a YouTube channel. You can do that by posting on Twitter or even creating full-blown courses on platforms like Udemy or Coursera or any of those other learn to code platforms. Like I mentioned, this particular bullet point probably isn't geared towards the absolute beginner. And honestly, most of these bullet points that I'm mentioning aren't geared towards absolute beginners. But this one in particular might require that you have a little bit more skills because if you are teaching, that means you have to be able to really explain some of the nuanced things that go into, maybe semantic HTML or when you get into like specificity of CSS, or even if you want to go beyond that and talk about CSS libraries and things like that. But it is a way that you can make money and it can be lucrative. There's a lot of people who make money with content. And if you're able to grow even a small social media following, you can still generate some revenue. You don't need a whole bunch of followers to be able to sell and make a little bit of money. But obviously, the bigger you're following, the more people that you can market your stuff to. Being able to teach web design and HTML and CSS is a way that you can make money. And you can do that, like I mentioned, with social media followings or directly on some of the courseware platforms that are out there. The next one I want to get into is email template design. This is one that my buddy Joe from Coding Phase talks about a lot. And I know that he's got courses on this stuff. Email templates are just HTML and CSS. And every company needs email templates. And anybody who's got a website doing outreach to customers via email will more than likely need some email template work. All that goes into it is HTML and CSS. So it's a very low barrier to entry market as far as skills are concerned. And it's also kind of niche. You can create your own HTML and CSS themes and layouts for email templates and sell them. And you can also do freelancing work and try to look for those particular jobs because when you look for email templating jobs, they're going to be pretty much just HTML and CSS. And if you have those skills, then you're more than qualified for those jobs. And it doesn't require you knowing a whole bunch of JavaScript. It doesn't require you knowing any frameworks or any backend stuff. You really just need to have some solid HTML and CSS skills, and you can be qualified to do those jobs. Also, creating HTML and CSS templates for emails isn't very difficult, and you could probably create like a bunch of them fairly quickly. They're not very elaborate and they're not very complicated. This could be like a weekend project, or, if you're just getting started, you could take a month to really focus on doing this and you'd probably be able to knock out a bunch of them. So I would definitely recommend thinking about this if you're looking to make some money with HTML and CSS. And I would definitely check out Joe's courses on this stuff because he's one of like the few people that really talk about this. And I think that it's an underserved market and it's a good way to like get your foot in the door when you're learning how to code and trying to get some of those first gigs as a developer, just needing HTML and CSS. And like I said, I did a bit of research on this and I found different things on the internet. And here's one that I can't verify how much money you can make doing this, but it is something that came up, and it's submitting your HTML and CSS for competition or contest. And I know that there's sites like 99 Designs was one of them, and there's other sites that do things like this, but you could look around and see if there's anywhere that you can submit some of your HTML and CSS work for competition. I feel like this is one of those bullet points where I'm going to get a lot of comments where you're going to be like, come on, bro, really? Don't kill the messenger. This is stuff that I went out and looked for, and this is just what came up. And that's just the truth. And there's probably people that have made money submitting their HTML and CSS work for competitions and contests, but I really don't know how lucrative it can be. But hey, prove me wrong. Go out there and do it and make some money and come back and tell me, hey, yeah, I was able to do that. Or if you know someone that has done that, let me know in the comments below. I don't know how good your skills need to be. I know that people like Jay or Cassandra on Twitter that make like really cool things with CSS or make CSS art probably can make some money with contests like these, but I don't know how the regular person who's maybe just getting started, or even me, who I feel like I have pretty decent skills with my HTML and CSS. I don't know if any of my work is contest worthy, but it might be something to look into. And I figured I'd mention it because you can make money with it. So why not? Just don't kill me in the comments over that one. All right. This next one might be for people who are more advanced and have very good HTML and CSS skills, but it's consulting and reviewing. There's a lot of people that reach out to me that want me to review their portfolios and that want me to review their websites. And like, I don't have time to do that, but there's definitely a market for that. And there's people who need their websites reviewed and fixed sometimes. And if you can find a way to market your HTML and CSS skills to people who need their stuff reviewed and maybe even fixed, you can almost offer it as a consulting service. And if you go back to some of my previous bullet points and you have a social media following and you've already kind of built a reputation around your development skills, in particular your HTML and CSS skills, it might be a lot easier for you to get clients doing this, but it is a way that you can make some money, especially if you niche down into something like accessibility. There's a lot of accessibility that goes into HTML. And I know for a fact, I've worked for a lot of teams where like one of my jobs was to go in and make the HTML more accessible and putting all the proper labels and the ARIA labels and all the things that you need in order for screen readers to be able to read it, making sure that it's optimized for accessibility. So that could be a way that you can kind of like niche into reviews. And if you go and you look for websites that have issues with their accessibility, and you can go in your dev tools on your browser and run Lighthouse and see if they have accessibility issues, and maybe reach out to companies and say, hey, like I checked out your site, I reviewed it, I offer consulting services to improve accessibility, and this is what I suggest that you do, and I can do it for you for this price. Let me know. And that could be a way that you can make some money with just HTML. And even CSS, if they got contrast issues with their colors, if you learn a little bit of color theory and design, you could make yourself very valuable. You can offer that one little niche market your skills, and it doesn't really take much. Like learning about good semantic HTML and accessibility is like a weekend or two of research. Getting very good at it and knowing every little detail and nuanced thing about it will take a while, but getting good enough won't take long. And you'd be surprised how many websites and companies out there have websites that aren't accessible or are lacking accessibility. And that's a good way that you can make money with HTML and CSS if you decide to go out and review websites and consult and offer your skills to companies and people that could use them and need improvement. The last one is open source projects. I feel like I say open source projects all the time, and I hardly ever contribute to open source projects, so shame on me. This may not offer you a ton of money, but it could offer you opportunity, and it could help you grow and build your portfolio. And also, as someone who's actually been recently looking through Upwork for jobs that are out there, I have seen that there are open source projects that are posting jobs on Upwork that pay money in order to fix things. Now, I haven't seen any that were specifically for HTML and CSS because that's not what I was searching for. but I can confirm that there are open source projects that need things fixed that are paying people on Upwork. And this is firsthand information that I have seen for myself. If you go in and look for jobs like that, or open source projects that are in desperate need of people to fix and build stuff for them, and you look for this HTML and CSS jobs that they might have open, that could be a good way to make money. Worst comes to worst, it's a good way to build your portfolio in order for you to later on make money with those skills. I threw this one in there because I feel like it does add value for you and the open source project, and there is potential to make money. So I felt like I need to say it. I want to end this video by saying, this is all information I went out and researched. I used some of my HTML and CSS skills early on when I was getting started to do a few little odd freelancing jobs here and there. And I built websites for people pretty much with just HTML and CSS. I built upon that. And I do believe that my HTML and CSS skills played a major role in me getting my first job, because that was what I was the strongest in. And that's what I leveled up the most, because every time I went and started learning JavaScript, it was too difficult. And I went back to HTML and CSS, which caused me to get better at those things. And I wish that I would have figured out a way to make money with it sooner. And I wish I would have been able to market those skills. So I'm making this video just to share what I would do now if I was in the position I was years ago when I was learning how to code, and I felt really good with HTML and CSS, but I didn't feel like I knew pretty much anything else. So if you feel that you're kind of in a similar position and you want to start making some money with your HTML and CSS skills, these are some options for you. And if you're someone who's just getting started, maybe these options aren't the best because they will require you to have decent enough skills that you can market. But I've given you a few things that you can use in order to get your skills up there. And I've also given some options for people who might be more advanced in their HTML and CSS to make money in different ways than a beginner can. So I feel like this was a good list. Let me know. I'd love to get some feedback on this, because I hate talking about stuff that I don't know, but I felt that I did enough research and looked into this enough to make a good video that can give information that I feel is valuable. And I hope that's what I did here. With all that said, if you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, make sure you hit that like button. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.